Hello everybody, it's your favorite West Virginia out in space here, and it's no secret that I'm not a fan of the YouTube channel, the Aristocratic Utensil, or as I call it, Spoonhead. And ultimately that should be rather obvious. You can watch my video basically giving you a rundown of why I don't like the YouTube channel. I get clear his ideas bad. Ultimately though, that was just kind of a video that just happened. It did okay and all that jazz. However, as you might expect when you take on another YouTube channel, his fans, of course, defended him. Of course, it makes perfect sense too. I expect fans to generally criticize a video comment criticism and their creator. However, a lot of the criticism was rather baseless, mostly devolving to ad hominems or calling me stupid. Seriously, get some more original stuff, people. However, there was one piece of criticism that one or two people gave that was actually somewhat fair. They said instead of just attacking the whole channel, I should take on one particular video and criticize why that video in particular was bad. Now, of course, I still think my original video was good for the most part, could have been a little better, but ultimately I do agree that it is completely fair to, instead of attacking a whole vague channel, go after a specific part of it. And I think that's completely fair. However, I wasn't immediately going to go into that purely because I said my piece. I don't what was I gonna say in most videos? Like, I could just repeat the same thing I did in the sections and it wouldn't have been much. However, he kept making videos and they've somehow gotten worse. I was originally going to do another video, however, that was going to be all intellectual and factual. All my videos I try to be that, but in more, more like scholarly kind of approach to it. And then he released this video, why are young males embracing traditionalism? I think I might have said the title wrong, but I'll give the link to it. And, yeah, after seeing this and the associated Rumble video, someone has to talk about this. And once again, it falls upon me to do it. So, here's my criticism of that video and why its ideas are bad and a message of hope for people going forward. To set some ground rules first before we go into this, I do expect you guys to have seen or watched the two videos I'm criticizing, purely because I believe that in the name of intellectual honesty, it's important to see people to see what one is criticizing before you criticize it. So I just view that as something you should do because I want to be intellectually honest here, as I view that's important. And the second thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with everything he says in the video. Like, for example, it's rather hypocritical for the left to praise people who do, like, adult actress stuff, but then also criticize games with, like, scantily-clad women. It's rather hypocritical. Pick one, I guess. But the thing at the end of the day, though, is that I'm not criticizing that today. What I'm criticizing is how he looks down and demeans on women so hard it would give a Victorian man a run for his money. And I'm not joking about that. And you might say I'm being hyperbolic, except for the fact in the first video, he openly says that no sane man would want women to have any authority or say in anything, which is just so messed up. Like, do I even have to go into this? Like, that is just insane. That's just crazy levels of sexism. That once again, even most people in the ancient day would say that's too much. And that's saying a lot. And this comes down to another thing, is that he goes into, once again, that men are bigger and stronger and faster and all that jazz. And, well, all this is true, yes, except for, that's averages. I feel like someone has to say this. That's averages. Yes, most men are indeed stronger, faster, bigger than most women. However, that is not a universal truth, as there are always exceptions to averages. Not to mention, a completely reasonable question is, why does being bigger and stronger make you better? Like, sure, in physical aspects it does, but, like, I criticized this in the first video, and they did get some criticism, people saying, oh, well, because they're bigger and stronger, that means they are morally better, and like the other video I did, and that's just makes no sense, because the only worldview where that makes sense, where being bigger and stronger makes you the more morally superior, isn't a might makes right kind of worldview, where only power, sometimes only physical, but sometimes just power in general, matters to one's morals. And granted, I don't agree with that philosophy, but if that's one's philosophy, that's what it is. However, a true version of that philosophy wouldn't allow for sexism, because once again, women can be big and strong, and men can be weak and small. So, true version of, like, might makes right philosophy wouldn't let you be sexist, because then it's kind of like you have to pick one. Do you want to be sexist, or do you want to follow might makes right here? Because you got to pick one, and you just can't really have it both ways under that kind of philosophy. Another thing is that he goes on how men are smarter than women, and that is a complicated question, but, like, there isn't really solid evidence of that either. Most evidence seems to suggest that either men and women, on average, are about the same intelligence. There is some data to suggest that men are somewhat prone to being on more of the extreme ends. Like, there would be more smart men, but also more dumb men compared to women, who more on average seem to be around the middle. However, this is hard to tell and somewhat inconclusive. There is some areas where the sexes are better at some things, but they aren't overall intelligence. Women are in general better with language and communication, while men are better with stuff like spatial reasoning reasoning. This kind of makes sense if you look at how that's played out through our course of human history, but there's no good studies that seem to suggest that there is a strong indication that one sex is smarter than the other. And that goes for the feminists too. Men and women just seem to be of roughly equal intelligence. And once again, even if there was that men on average were smarter than women, this would still be an average. There would always be outliers and exceptions to the rule. So once again, basing your worldview on this is rather poor. And it gets back to another thing that kind of just happens in the entirety of the video, if you notice, is that the entirety of it is primarily based around just groupthink, how all men and all women are like this. But this isn't like me going on some rant here. It's just a statement of fact. There are always exceptions to the rule. And basing your entire worldview on what everyone must think this one way will always come back to bite you in the end. Because you'll end up overlooking good candidates for jobs or positions because you're looking for traits that aren't necessarily equal to that. And then another thing he says that, women can't hold power, they always mess this kind of thing up, but that's not even true. I mean, the Queen Victoria, he loves to say so much, literally was ruling over England during one of, if not its most powerful time in history, and a relatively loved monarch. We don't exactly call it the Victorian age for nothing, after all. Another thing he says to explain the reason of how this happened was because, society isn't religious anymore. Like, people aren't religious, so they fall into feminism or something like that. I can't really tell. And, that's just not really true. Most people in the world today are religious. Like just a little over 1 billion are atheist or agnostic, and most others are religious to some variety. There's over 2 billion Christians, 1 billion Muslims, a little over 1 billion Hindus and stuff like that. So the world is majority religious. So that's not really a good argument of how things have changed. And also, it's one thing he says that, men used to work themselves to the bone to provide themselves for their family and such. And that is technically true, but it misses why they had to do it. It wasn't because they were trying to build up some legacy of how men are superior. It was because life was hard. Very, very hard, especially before the Industrial Revolution, but even during and after it. People do not understand how hard the old world was, how hard things were. It wasn't just men who had to work to the bone, it was the women and the children. People had to work very, very hard to survive, and that's part of where some of these old ideas came from. Part of it out of necessity, and part of it out of a misunderstanding of certain things. At least, it's hard to explain, that's a whole different conversation, but it's also there. It wasn't just men in the past being super sexist for no particular reason. It was a complicated series of issues stemming from tribal shenanigans and history, and it's just the whole thing. And also he says that's why every society all across the world has always restricted the power of women, which is just, that kind of just goes back into another thing he said, where the whole thing is that he compared women, adult women, to children, saying how you don't restrict the rights and powers of a child because you hate them, because you love them. And listen, I'm not saying it's impossible that Spoonhead does legitimately say these things out of some kind of like of women. But it doesn't change the fact that is just a horrible mentality you have, to compare adult people, adult women, or anyone, to a child for no reason other than their sex, and saying their rights stripped away, forced to do only what you dignify they do, is just crazy. If the tables were turned, would you want it to happen to you? And once again, you can't really give solid proof of why this should be like that. And then this gets to kind of the final part and breathing into the Rumble video. And because, for example, in the Rumble video here, is that, one of the things it said was that, all this happens because women don't get enough sex. That was his main thesis, kind of, that one, is that all these crazy feminist women, or just, in his mind, feminists, the actual definition is somewhat vague in this case, but, just because they weren't getting enough, do it. As he says, and I quote, censored it partially, though, women need to be the D word until they're back at black and blue to fix them. Or I think it was the right terminology there. But, yeah, I don't think I need to explain to you how that's messed up. I really hope it isn't. I really hope I don't have to. And overall, it's just, I think that shows is that I don't know if Spoonhead actually hates women. It's quite possible he doesn't, like I said. But the point is, these ideas will hurt women. They won't just hurt women, they'll hurt men. They'll hurt everyone. Because if you hurt one half of society, you hurt the other half. Because we are meant to work together. We are not meant to be in this adversarial relationship. And this is what this kind of stuff pushes. It pushes that insert sex is the enemy. To the left, they think men are the enemy. To the right, they think women are the enemy. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, both are not the enemy. We are people. We are individuals who have our place in society because we are people. By living in society, you have your place in it. Your place in society is defined by what you do with it. And sometimes the circumstances of your birth and all that jazz. But that's the thing, all of this talk, both from the right and the left, where they blame men or women, is just blaming. It's blaming the problems of the world on someone else. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes well, first of all, you can never define problems as big as men or women, because people aren't a hive mind. People are people. Like, individuals will always stray from any kind of collectivist you put on them, because we are humans. And that's the important part to remember. We aren't just men or women or black or brown or white or this or that. We are humans. Each one of us a unique soul in this world. And that's the thing, is that it's not healthy to always blame your problems on someone else, because that's what a lot of this is. It's blaming others for problems you have in your life at its core in a lot of ways. And this is the message I want to give you, okay? This is the message, especially to young men who are struggling because they can't find a date, they can't find a good paying job, they can't find a place in the world. They feel like the entire world is being down on them. And there's a lot of truth to that. I'm not going to deny and say these problems don't exist, because they do. But the thing is, you don't fix these problems by turning to crazy far-right people, because that doesn't fix things. Sure, other things inside that do need to be fixed. That is true. But not every problem can be or should be fixed by society. Like, what? You want society to arrange you a girlfriend, to arrange you a good-paying job? At what point is that helping you, and at what point is that just forcing you under authoritarianism? And I don't think anyone wants that. I hope no one wants that. And I don't think anyone does at the core of cores, at least if you're not the boss of it or something. And that's the thing. It's like, if you are struggling, try to find a way to improve your own situation, because you will always struggle in life. It is the nature of this world. There is no perfect time in human history where we never had to struggle. Struggle defines life. You will not fix your problems by only screaming to someone else to fix it. You have to learn to fix it yourself. So don't turn to these crazy ideologies. Instead, find the strength within yourself to fix this. And if you're a young man, that goes doubly for you in this case, because you don't want to fall into this kind of craziness. It's easy to, with how they push you into it. But don't fall down that rabbit hole. Because in my opinion, it's a way more better thing to do as a human, to find a way to make a better world than try to make a worse one just to spite the other sex. And ultimately, that's why I want to end the video off. I hope this video inspires some good messages in some of you, and I hope it makes someone's life better. I really do. Anyway, if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. If you don't like it, dislike, comment, you know what to do. And I'll see you all next time. Yeah. Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're going to become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.